All right, let's jump in. My first question from the day says this. This is from Kelly. She says, Pastor Steve was in Matthew, but he skipped over the meaning of a verse that I was wanting him to talk about, Matthew 10:23. And she says, and the Son of Man will return before you have reached all the towns of Israel. Can you have him comment on this, please? Matthew 10:23.
There's a reason I skipped over it, and it's because I didn't want to comment on it. I'm just joking. I don't know why I didn't comment on it. This is Jesus sending the 12 apostles out to the cities of Israel. It starts off in chapter 10, verse 1, when he called his 12 disciples, gave them power over unclean spirits to cast them out and to heal all kinds of sickness and all kinds of disease. And then he says in verse 5, do not go into the way of the Gentiles, do not enter a city of the Samaritans, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. There are some things that are going on in this passage where Jesus goes beyond the present ministry that he's going to have these guys do. He literally sent them out to the different cities in Israel. And so if you look in Mark's gospel, in Mark chapter 6, and also Luke's gospel, you find these guys going out and then coming back to Jesus. In fact, in Luke's gospel, it tells you that they came back to Jesus right before Jesus fed the 5,000. And so he sent these guys out. Jesus was ministering on his own. When he's talking to them about their ministry, he talks to them about things that are going to be happening with them right at that point in time. He does launch off into the future too, though. And so there are places in the instruction where he talks about, in verse 18, you will be brought before governors and kings for my sake as a testimony to them and to the Gentiles. Now, obviously, he's talking about the future there because he's just told them, don't go to the Gentiles. And so there's some aspects of this that are speaking about the ministry of the apostles beyond that first being sent out. In verse 23 here, we don't know exactly what Jesus is talking about here. What people do is they jump on this and they decide that there's one and only one interpretation of the passage, and that's not necessarily so. So it says in verse 23, when they persecute you in this city, flee to another, for assuredly I say to you, you will not have gone through the cities of Israel before the Son of Man comes. Now, that could be talking about Jesus coming back the second time, and I'll address that in just a minute here. But it can also be talking about the fact that they're not going to be going through all the cities of Israel on this first ministry that he sends them to before he rejoins them. When it says the Son of Man comes here, doesn't necessarily mean the second coming. Every time Jesus is spoken of as coming, doesn't mean necessarily that we're talking about the second coming or the coming of Jesus for the church. And so he may just be saying, you know what, you're going to go out, there's going to be persecution. If you get persecuted in a city, just skip to the next one. You're not going to get this all done before I come back and rejoin you. And that may be all that he's saying in that passage. It could also be referencing the future and the ministry of the apostles, specifically to the Jews. When it says, in my translation, I say to you, you will not have gone, gone through the cities of Israel. The Greek word that's used there is a word that means finished. It has the idea of you've got a task and it's not going to be completed. And so it's not the idea of walking through the cities. It's the idea of having reached every single one of the cities of Israel. And so, you know, if we are talking about the future here, their future ministry after Jesus ascends, and if that is talking about the second coming there, then the point that's being made there is that you're not going to reach all the people of Israel before the Son of Man comes, for you specifically, and that would be in the rapture. And so my question at that point would be, have all the cities of the people of Israel been reached? Has that job been completed? and it hasn't been completed to this day. And so in that case, it would be an actual reference to the fact that you're not going to reach these people before I come back for you. And that's kind of the point of the tribulation period. So Jesus comes back for us, and for the apostles, they go in the rapture also. Rapture includes the resurrection of the dead in Christ. So the apostles go first. And so they would be going in that, and the cities of Israel will not have been finished, will not have been reached at that point. And they will finally be reached during the tribulation period. So one of those two things. And I kind of think that Jesus is just saying, you're not going to get it done before I come back, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, I do too, just because it's a kind of a official phrase, Son of Man, that you see connected to the end times, and so it kind of fits that better. But
yeah, one or the other.